Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of the Perspective podcast, the show where everything's made up and the points don't matter. So this is, I think, my new project for now. I think because things are warming up a bit anyways, but I just thought it's a nice way to keep my focus on a few things. So today I'm going to talk to you about something called EGBOK. Okay, this is a 3-letter acronym that was around probably well before text messaging. It's really old school. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because there's two experiences I have that relate to that. And I just think it's a really cool concept. And so what it stands for is everything's going to be okay. And I'll just give you a bit of background to it. In fact, my experience with it was more in a personal sense, but where it actually comes from is believe it or not, from a radio show in America called the Ken and Bob Company, and I believe that ran for like 17 years, somewhere from around the 70s, into the 90s type of thing. The background to it was, I think, in essence, sort of like back in those times, you had the Cold War, culminating in the 80s, and then in the 90s with I suppose, the fall of the Berlin Wall was the symbol of the end of that period. But you also had like things like the oil crisis in the 70s and all sorts of things happening in society at that time. And I suppose in many ways a lot of fear around that as well. And so these two guys coined that term, as far as I know, and that was something that they promoted in their radio show. And I think that's really cool because if you think about it today, it's really difficult to find something like that out there. And I've got a practical example for you, as I always do, which I'll share with you in just a while. But I'll just explain the experience that I had first in that regard. And this is going back to the early 90s. I was living in South Africa at that time. And in essence, that was a time of transition in society. It was the end of apartheid. And obviously Mandela came into power, did an amazing job, very humanitarian guy, in my opinion. And he was able to unite people essentially through sports. If you want to find out more about what that is, watch the movie Invictus. It's pretty accurate in my opinion, and it's quite inspiring. So why EGBOK? So back at that time, there was a radio station, I think it was 94.7, I can't quite recall, but they were essentially had come to the idea of taking that EGBOK concept and doing it through their radio setup. And it even went further than that. If I remember correctly, there were TV campaigns around it as well. And so it was that reassuring message in a time of a lot of violence and fear. The country was pretty much on the brink of civil war. And there was that peaceful transition. And I think what struck me is that back at that time, that there was media out there that was promoting a positive message. And I think that was fundamentally important and very much a part of the peaceful transition. And I just think that you don't see a hell of a lot of that today. There's not many EGBOK type campaigns out there. If there are, they're not very visible, I suppose, because of the fact that the media is very much strung out on the idea of fear and negativity. And I think a lot of that's also driven by the internet and the algorithms and all of that sort of stuff seem to circle back to the same vortex. So that's that story. And it's weird because I just came into my mind the other day, and I just remember that. I remember that from that time, and I think how positive and useful it was. It was a message of hope. So that's the story for today. But I guess the other thing, the practical example, which I'm going to apply today, is essentially I'm going to put a little footer on my emails. So, you say best regards or whatever. And at the bottom, I'm going to put a little link. I'm just going to put EGBOK. I'm going to put a little hyperlink there. And I'll link it to the Wikipedia page for that Bob show. And, it's just a small thing. But maybe, more of that is probably what's needed right now in this time. So I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Peace and love.